Demonstrators are gathering at this hour on the steps of the Capitol, and this rally is meant to urge lawmakers to stop from passing legislation, what's in the works, with restrictive voting measures. Let's go right to my colleague, Ellison Barber, who's standing by in Austin for us. Ellison, to you, what's happening at this event today?
Hey, Alex, you can see people have started to gather in front of the Capitol building here. They were just chanting, "Don't mess with Texas voters." Part of the goal, activists say, is to sort of run out the clock on those bills. Yes, we did see legislation pass the House, but it has to go back to the Senate. It's different than the legislation that passed the Senate. So the Senate now can either accept what was passed in the House, or they can go to a conference committee and try and reconcile those two bills. That would have to happen. Votes would have to happen again in the House and the Senate before the governor could sign it, and all of it has to happen before the legislative session ends on May 31st. So this rally, activists have told us, even though, yes, we did see legislation pass the House, this fight is not over yet and more can be done. I want to bring in Congressman Beto O'Rourke. He has been at the forefront of fighting these matters. Congressman, the Republican who sponsored this legislation said this is not voter suppression. He said this is voter enhancement. Those were his words. What say you?
This bill, if it passes and becomes law, is going to make it a lot harder for a lot more Texans to vote in a state that is already the toughest to vote in, bar none, in the United States. We've had hundreds of polling places closed, the toughest voter ID, racial gerrymander, the closure of drop-off ballot boxes during the pandemic that has killed 50,000, and now they want to make it harder for shift workers, harder for people of color, harder for disabled Texans, harder for the elderly, and harder for those who live in big cities to be able to vote. So this is an attack on our democracy, and this is a response. You have hundreds of Texans driving from as far away as El Paso, 8.5 hours to our west, to be here today to stand up for this state and every voter, Republican, Democrat, independent within it.
I was explaining how part of the goal we've heard from activists is sort of to run out the clock. May 31st is when this legislative session ends. How big of a deal can a rally be like this in stopping it? I mean, you have a Republican-controlled state, but can this do something?
So this bill that just passed in the dead of night earlier this week now has to go to a conference committee. There will be Democrats on that committee. This kind of public pressure forms some of the political will necessary to provide the leverage in those negotiations to improve the outcome of that bill. Having said that, there's only so much we can do here in Texas. We really need the Biden administration to step up and support those of us in Georgia, in Texas, in Arizona, in Kansas, across the country fighting these voter suppression bills, and offer us some protection and ensure that every eligible voter can cast their ballot. We need federal action right now, and we need the For the People Act to pass the Senate.
America has been watching what's happened in Georgia, Florida, now this. What's the most important thing for people outside of Texas, in your view, to understand as it relates to what's happening in this state?
This is part and parcel of the big lie, this fraud perpetrated by the former president that he somehow won the 2020 election and that our current president is illegitimate. This is part of the insurrection that we saw on January 6th, where 5 people were murdered in the United States Capitol, including a Capitol police officer. This is part of the 360 voter suppression bills that are pending in 47 state legislatures. This is the biggest attack on American democracy since the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. That's why folks are calling this Jim Crow 2.0, because it's trying to roll back multiracial democracy in America. And if we allow it to happen, we will never get it back. This is our moment of truth. We need everyone in America to step up, stand up, and fight for it.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.